So I want to start with a number, and it's a big one.
Hmm.
$16,200,000.
Wow. Yeah, that's a number that definitely gets your attention, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, you have to imagine a piece of property, something held in a family trust, specifically designed to secure someone's future.
Right.
And then, poof, it turns into this massive check. But the real question, the one we're digging into today, is who actually cashed it?
And that's where the story gets incredibly complicated. We're looking at, well, it's basically a shell game. A very sophisticated one involving family trusts, these limited liability companies or LLCs.
And one massive property sale right in Phoenix, Arizona.
Exactly. And at the center of it all is a beneficiary, a man named James Robert McClure.
His future was tied up in these assets. And our mission for this deep dive is to trace that paper trail, to follow the $16.2 million Copart transaction, and see how that land was, let's say, moved right out of the trust just before the payday.
It's a masterclass in legal maneuvering.
Okay, so let's set the stage. What did things look like before this big sale in 2019?
Well, you had the assets sitting inside two trusts, the JCJ Irrevocable Trust from 1995 and the MLR Living Trust, which is even older, from 1987.
And I'm looking at one of the exhibits, Exhibit B. It's crystal clear who these trusts were for. It lists 3 names.
Jason R. McClure, Candy L. McClure Shipley, and James R. McClure.
The beneficiaries. So the whole point of a trust, I mean, the reason they exist is to hold and protect assets for these people.
That's the textbook definition.
Yeah.
And the main asset here was, well, it was this huge piece of land, 24125 North 7th in Phoenix.
Yeah, we've seen the survey maps. This isn't just a backyard. It's massive, prime real estate.
Prime commercial dirt. And before 2019, the documents show the interests in this land were tied directly to those trusts.
So in a perfect world, if a big company wants to buy it, they write a check to the trust.
That's how it's supposed to work. The money goes into the trust, and the beneficiaries, well, they benefit.
But that is not what happened. Something happened first, a shuffle.
The pre-game shuffle. And this is the critical moment. We see a legal tool called a quitclaim deed.
Okay, explain that. What's a quitclaim deed in simple terms?
It's a very blunt instrument. It's basically one party saying to another, whatever interest I have in this property, if I have any at all, I'm giving it to you. Right now. No warranties, no promises.
So it's a quick and dirty way to transfer property.
Very. And in this case, we need to look at who's giving and who's getting. The grantors, the ones giving the land away.
It's Jason McClure signing as trustee of the JCJ Irrevocable Trust, and Ronald L. McClure.
So Jason, the person whose job it is to protect the trust assets.
He signs the deed to move the land out of the trust.
Exactly. And who does he give it to? The grantee.
An entity called RMLM, LLC,
Sure.
an Arizona Limited Liability Company.
And that's the whole ball game right there.
Why? Why is that such a big deal, moving it from a trust to an LLC?
Because it completely changes the rules.
Mhm.
A trust has a fiduciary duty to its beneficiaries. To James.
A legal obligation to act in his best interest.
Right. But an LLC, that's a business. Its duty is to its members and managers. By moving the land, they essentially stripped off that protective legal wrapper. The obligation to James gets left behind with the now empty trust.
And the asset is in a new playground with different rules, a playground controlled by.
The managers of the LLC. And the documents show the manager of RMLM LLC is Ronald L. McClure.
I noticed the address for RMLM2, 2155 West Williams Drive.
That's a key detail. That address is linked directly to Ronald in other documents. It's his turf.
So the land moved from the family safe to Ronald's business safe. And Jason, as trustee, is the one who unlocked the door.
He didn't just unlock it, he signed the transfer papers.
Okay, so now the stage is set. The land is sitting inside RMLM LLC. And that brings us to October 2019.
The payday. A company called Copart of Arizona, Inc. shows up.
And these guys are a huge player. The auto auction company. They need huge plots of land.
And they wanted this one. And they were willing to pay.
I'm looking at the affidavit of property value. It's basically the final receipt for the sale.
And what does it say?
Sale price. $16,200,000.
There's that number again, just staggering.
But here, this is what gets me, the seller line. It doesn't say the JCJ Irrevocable Trust.
No, it doesn't. It lists the sellers as RMLM LLC and 2 others, OOOC LLC and NTO LLC.
All LLCs. And the people who signed to accept that $16.2 million check.
Ronald L. McClure as manager for RMLM and OOC.
And Jason McClure as manager for NTO.
So the money from Copart goes directly into the bank accounts of the LLCs controlled by Jason and Ronald.
And the trust, the one that's supposed to benefit James.
It's a ghost in the transaction. Because it didn't technically own the land at the moment of the sale, it didn't get the check.
Wow. It's just so surgically precise.
That's a good way to put it. It's value stripping. You strip the valuable asset out of the entity that has obligations, the trust, and put it into a clean entity with no obligations to the beneficiary.
Right before the big sale.
The timing is everything.
No. I kept looking through the documents. I was thinking, okay, maybe there's another step. Maybe the LLCs then turned around and paid the trust back. Replenished the value.
We looked for that. A promissory note, a loan, anything showing the money flowed back to where it came from.
And what did you find?
Nothing. In this stack of documents, there is no evidence that the $16 million went anywhere but to the LLCs. The loop was never closed.
So James, who was supposed to be protected by this irrevocable trust, is left with what? An empty trust.
An empty shell. While Jason and Ronald control the companies that just cashed out for over $16 million.
You see this power dynamic everywhere in these papers. Jason and Ronald are always the manager, the trustee, the creditor. James is just a name on a beneficiary list from the 90s.
He's a passive player. He's relying entirely on the integrity of the people in charge. And that's the danger. If you're not watching, the ground can be sold right out from under you. Literally.
And it wasn't just this one deal, was it? You mentioned there were other signs, a pattern of behavior.
There's a phrase that keeps appearing in deeds associated with them personally. Sole and separate property.
What's that mean?
It's legal language, especially in a state like Arizona, to wall off an asset. To say, this is mine and mine alone. It's not for the community, not for a spouse, and certainly not for a family trust. It shows a very clear intent to separate personal assets from trust assets.
There was also that correction deed. That one seemed particularly brazen.
Oh, the correction deed. Yeah, that's a fascinating document. Basically, an asset had previously been assigned to the trust.
Put into the safe.
Right. And then this document comes along later and says, oops, that was an error. We didn't mean to put that in the safe. We're taking it back.
Wow. Not bad.
Effectively, yes. So when you see that, plus the quitclaim deeds, plus the LLCs, it paints a picture of people actively curating what was and was not in the trust.
And the flow is always in one direction.
Out of the trust. Toward entities controlled by Jason and Ronald.
I just want to go back to that quitclaim for a second, the one for the Copart land. How much did RMLM LLC pay the trust for that land? What was the sale price?
Well, with a quitclaim, the consideration is often nominal. The document usually says something like $10 or for value received.
So, the trust gives up an asset that's about to be sold for $16.2 million for $10 and a handshake.
That's the arithmetic of the strip, yes. The trust realizes no gain. The LLC, a few days or weeks later, realizes the entire gain.
It just raises so many questions about transparency. I mean, did James know? Was he told that the crown jewel of his trust was being given away?
There's no consent of beneficiary form in our stack. Without that, you have to assume the trustee acted unilaterally.
Which brings it all back to that one word, duty. As a trustee, you have a fiduciary duty. What happens when you do something like this?
It's a massive breach of that duty. But the catch is always enforcement. If a beneficiary doesn't know the asset is gone, how can they challenge the transaction?
It's the old, if a tree falls in the forest problem. If a trustee sells the forest and the beneficiary isn't there to hear it.
The money can be gone, moved, and layered under 3 more LLCs by the time anyone notices the clearing.
Yeah.
And that complexity, the RMLM, OAC, NTO, that alphabet soup serves a purpose. It's a fog. It's designed to be opaque and discouraging for someone trying to follow the money.
It's sophisticated. I mean, they didn't just smash a piggy bank. They built a new impenetrable bank and moved the money there.
The legal architecture is very deliberate. You can see the strategy was to make sure the cash and the tax liability landed squarely with the LLCs, not the trust.
It's such a harsh lesson. You see the word trust on a document and you trust it.
But a trust is just a set of instructions. It's only as good as the person executing them. In the hands of someone who puts their own interests first, the tools meant to protect can be used to dismantle.
It's like giving the security guard the keys to the vault.
And in this case, the guard didn't just take the money, he took the whole armored truck. And it had $16.2 million in it.
That number. For James, that wasn't just a number on a page. That was security. That was a future. It was a promise made to him in 1995.
And the paper trail shows pretty clearly that promise being broken. The asset was severed from the promise, and the obligation to James was left in that empty shell.
So to recap the path, The trust owns the land. The trustee moves the land to an LLC that he and a partner control. That LLC sells land for a fortune. The trust gets nothing back.
And the beneficiary, James, gets nothing. While Jason and Ronald control the entities that hold all the proceeds, that's the narrative these documents lay out for us.
It's a sobering story, a zero-sum game. For them to win that big, the trust in James had to lose.
It's a brutal lesson in oversight. Trust but verify has never been more true.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a final thought. This whole thing was a heist, but it was done with pens and notarized forms, not masks and guns. Every step was, on its face, a valid legal transaction.
A quiet, paper-based, and devastatingly effective heist.
So here's the question to think about. When a trustee, the person legally bound to protect you, uses the machinery of the law to essentially move your inheritance into their own pocket, at what point does smart business become something else? And if the paper trail just stops at the LLC, does the moral obligation vanish just because the legal one was so cleverly shifted?
That really is the $16 million question, isn't it?
I'm sure it's one James has asked himself. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you on the next one.